within the criminal and internal investigation, which is standard for an officer-involved shooting. So this is certainly a tragedy that's going to impact, I would say, our country for a very long time. It's a scar on Charlotte, but a scar that won't heal. We're a resilient profession and a resilient city, and we will certainly get through this. But it will take time, and it will take support from all of our community as our officers continue to keep our community safe even through this tragedy. So thank you, and I'll turn it over back to Lieutenant Petrus.
Thank you, Chief. Our next speaker is the Director of the United States Marshal Service, and that's Director Ron Davis.
Good morning, and thank you, excuse me, for coming. I don't think words can describe the amount of pain that the Marshal Service and all of its members, the court family, law enforcement in general, this community, and communities around the country are feeling with such a loss. The Chief mentioned for the first time we were releasing the name of Deputy Weeks. Let me tell you something about this hero. Thomas Weeks is a Deputy United States Marshal. He was 48 years old. He is survived by his wife, Kelly, and has 4 children. He was transferred to this district, the Western District of North Carolina, in 2018. So he served 6 years here, although he's been with the agency for some 13 years. We did send out a release with more information along with the photo for you. And I want to make sure that people remember him and the other 3 officers that have perished in this incident. He was assigned to, as I mentioned, the Western District of North Carolina, but he was also assigned to our Fugitive Task Force. And let me just say something quickly about the task force to understand the context in which they operate. As was mentioned, there are over 16 agencies in the task force that covers North Carolina. We have 56 district task forces, 8 regional task forces around the country, and it is an example of what we've seen yesterday of how local, state, and federal law enforcement come together, share resources, make sure that the force multiplier, removing those violent and most dangerous from our community and the safety of our community. And that's what happened yesterday. And so we'll give you, in the future, give you more information about the task force, but Deputy Weeks was serving on that task force, as do hundreds, if not thousands, of deputies and officers around the country every day. Even right now as we speak, there are thousands of deputies and task force officers serving our communities, trying to bring to justice those that are responsible for some of the most heinous crimes in our society. And I want you to just pause a moment and please offer your thoughts and prayers and think about them and their families and everybody that suffered yesterday. We didn't just have a bad day for the community. This is a loss for the entire country. I have been in conversations with the Attorney General of the United States as well as the Deputy Attorney General of the United States to make sure we offer all resources and support necessary to the police department as they continue and to our law enforcement partners. And I want to personally thank all the law enforcement officers from the agencies that responded. As more and more comes out about this incident, not only will you see how brave they were, you will see examples of that courage and bravery. Let there be no mistake, they represent the best of us. They are truly America's finest, and it's just an honor to serve with them. I will meet with the family later today, a meeting that no leader, director, or police chief ever wants to have. Losing a deputy, using task force officers, is like losing a family member, because quite frankly, they are family members. I don't have many words at this time other than say that inside my agency that I'm going to ask the men and women of the United States Marshal Service to continue their steadfast commitment to the American people, to continue the outstanding job that you do, and know and witness this amount of support you have. This community, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg community, has been tremendous. Thank you very much for that. It is not going unnoticed, and I think the entire nation will see that, and we are appreciative for that. Thank you.
Mr. Director, thank you. Next speaker is Governor, State of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper. Governor.
Thank you, Lieutenant, Chief, Director, Attorney General, Mayor, fellow North Carolinians. I'm also joined here today with our Secretary of the Department of Public Safety, Eddie Buffalo, and our Secretary of the Department of Adult Correction, Todd Ishii. Yesterday, 8 families had to be told that their loved one had been shot in the line of duty. It was news they hoped would never come. Tragically, 4 of those families have made the ultimate sacrifice. Yesterday, North Carolina and this country lost 4 heroes and saw 4 other heroes wounded. For these members of this U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police on patrol who responded so quickly and so bravely when help was needed, dangerous assignments are part of the job, but they step up and do it anyway to protect our communities and protect our families. The investigation into this tragic, brutal, deadly attack will result in more answers that we don't know today. And I expect it to find those answers and to help bring to justice people for these needless deaths of these brave officers. We can never, ever fill the void that they leave behind, and we can never fully thank them for what they do to keep us safe. But today, we can remember them and honor their lives, help their families, and support their fellow officers. Among those killed were 4 public servants. 2 of them were state employees, task force members with the Department of Adult Correction, Sam Pelosi and Alden Elliott, U.S. Marshal Thomas Weeks, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Officer Joshua Ayers. Those who died were dedicated to this work, and we're grateful for their bravery and courage. Yesterday, I met with some of the fellow officers and heard stories about these officers who lost their lives. They were good ones, people that you could trust, people who you could count on, and people who would risk their lives. And at the hospital, I also met with some of the families of those killed in the line of duty, and I met one of the wounded officers. What I told them was that the people of North Carolina are grateful for their sacrifice. Together we prayed, together we gave words of comfort. But I know that the emptiness left behind in these families will continue to run deep. And I ask that North Carolinians pray for these families and their law enforcement colleagues who are left behind in this tragedy, and to support those law enforcement officers that they've left behind. Our state will be with you for the next few days, weeks, months, and years ahead. I've received calls from all over the country, from President Biden, from federal and state cabinet secretaries, other governors across the country. They've offered any assistance that we might need. And our state will continue to offer resources and support as needed in the days and weeks ahead. And as we seek to heal and make sense of all of this devastation, as we seek justice, as we work to make our communities safer, I want to offer my deepest thanks to law enforcement at every level who continue to wake up every morning ready to serve despite the dangers that come with it. Our families are thankful, our communities are thankful, our state is thankful. May God bless you and the souls we lost. May God bless North Carolina and the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. The next speaker is the Attorney General for the state of North Carolina, the Honorable Joshua Stein.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good morning, everyone. Chief Jennings, thank you for convening us to honor these fallen officers. Governor Cooper, thank you for your moving words. U.S. Marshal Director Davis, Mayor Lyles, thank you all for your leadership in this exceptionally trying time. Today is a day of heartbreak in North Carolina. 4 peace officers were killed in the line of duty yesterday and 4 more wounded. CMPD officer Joshua Ayers, Deputy Marshal Thomas Weeks, and 2 task force officers from the Department of Adult Corrections Officer Sam Pelosi, and Alden Elliott. Although our words are insufficient, we offer our most sincere gratitude for their selfless service, and we mourn their ultimate sacrifice. As we honor these officers, local, state, and federal, we also honor their families, who've now been forced to pay a heavy toll as well. We ask our peace officers to do something that is awe-inspiring, to run into the face of danger that every human urge is telling them to flee. But they do it to keep us safe. They engage the public. They patrol, they investigate, and they make arrests so that our kids can learn safely at school, play safely in the neighborhood, and sleep safely in their homes. But to serve and protect can come with fatal consequences, as we were tragically reminded yesterday here in Charlotte. The people of Charlotte have suffered an immeasurable loss. But I know Charlotte and all of North Carolina is full of the kind of people who will rally and take care of each other. So even though this city is mourning and in pain today, I'm certain that this community will not only come together to support each other, but to surround the families and friends and colleagues of these officers with the love that they need and deserve. The people of Charlotte are strong and will rise to the occasion. Thank you all. May God bless each of you, embrace the families of the 4 murdered officers, and heal the 4 who were injured. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Our next speaker and final speaker is our very own Mayor Vi Lyles, Mayor of the City of Charlotte. Mayor.
I want to say thank you to the governor, to our marshal leader, to our attorney general, especially to our police chief, for all that you've done in the last 48 hours. I want to thank each of you for coming out here today. I think you'll hear words that are important for us to heal. We're grateful that you have the presence here. I hope that everyone has an opportunity to tell a story that will connect us together again. To the men and women in law enforcement, we acknowledge your bravery, your commitment, your willingness to stand where others will not. To our healthcare providers, you did all that was possible, and we're grateful for that, that you're able to keep watch over those that are still in your care, and for those that had to take that journey home. We're really grateful. If you had to stand in Atrium and Novant and see the kinds of things that these doctors were reaching out to do, you would be grateful as a community. I am grateful as your mayor. I want you to know that as we escorted Officer Eiley out, that the healthcare individual stood beside the wall. There were as many tears as you could imagine from the healthcare providers as it was for our officers, for the people that really understand and know this. I think that the healthcare providers were exceptional in their commitment to all of us. To the 4 families who gave that ultimate sacrifice, I want you to know we see you. We support you, not just today, but in the many days that are coming. Officer Eiler, his wife Ashley, his darling son Andrew. Today we say our prayers as we get through this difficult time, but we as a community have to remember that at some point we have to give this back to those families, and I hope that we will all support. I want you to know that the President Biden did contact me last night to be sure that he wanted us to know that he cares about the people in this community, especially those that are no longer with us. I want to thank the mayors across this country for the texts. I've seen flowers laid at the police department's front door. I've seen words spoken that bring to all of us a sense of peace. I know that this community will continue to believe in the good, and there'll be many ways to express what we care about, especially our police and law enforcement officers. But I ask every one of you individually, let's just take a moment of silence right now and think about how we can believe in what's good, how we can believe and support those families that will need us so much in the future. Charlotte isn't going to be the last place that this happens, but Charlotte will be the place that will heal with dignity and respect for everyone. Thank you very much for this time to express what we believe in this community, our values, our hope, and our prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. That does conclude all of the prepared remarks. Our speakers, all of them are available for questions. I do ask that you identify who your question is for as you.
If the suspect was already down in the front yard and you were still taking fire, where was that fire coming from? Who was shooting it and from where?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're still kind of sorting through that right now. We're not ruling out the possibility that someone else was firing as well. But we're also not ruling out the possibility that as we go through body-worn camera footage and as we go through interviews, to make sure that all of that timeline matches up. So once we are able to determine that, then we'll determine if we do need to look at other individuals or individual who might have been shooting. I know I mentioned yesterday some pretty forward remarks about a possibility of a second shooter. We are not ready to say that at this point.
Chief Faith Amuve, ABC News. Could you please explain whether officers made it to the door before the shooting began, where the suspect was at the time, and how he was able to shoot so many officers?
Well, yeah, first of all, the officers were actually approaching the residence when they took on gunfire. The suspect at the time had an upper advantage to the officers, so he was shooting from upstairs. Down at the officers, both front and back, which also could be an indication that we thought maybe there were multiple shooters at the time too, because gunshots were coming from multiple locations within the house. So that's part of the investigation we have to sort through, and we will certainly come to a conclusion on that at some point.
Chief David Hodges, WVLT investigative reporter.
Yes.
One of the most common questions I'm hearing from the community right now is this person who's accused of killing these officers, should he have been out on the streets? So I'm trying to answer that. We looked at his criminal history, and even just in Mecklenburg County found many charges that have been dismissed, including fleeing and eluding arrest, possession of marijuana up to a half an ounce, driving with a revoked license, maintaining a vehicle billing place of a felony charge that was also dismissed. Does any of that point to a larger problem in the criminal justice system?
Well, let me say this. I know this individual did serve a significant amount of time in jail and had been released, but I can give you hundreds of examples of people that I feel like should not be out preying upon our citizens. And I've been pretty vocal about that, particularly with juveniles. What I'll say is that our system is not completely the where it needs to be, but we also have so many people involved. I really think we're overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed in the court system. Our district attorney is overwhelmed with the docket that we see within Charlotte, Mecklenburg. And I don't have an answer for that, But what I can tell you is that I am focused on holding people accountable for the crimes that they commit and making sure that accountability is appropriate. And whether that means incarceration, whether that means probation, or whether that means something as simple as a fine. But I firmly believe that we should be held accountable for crimes that we commit.
And Ms. Price, with ABC 11, can you describe the relationship of those two females with the suspect?
I'm not sure I want to release that right now, but that'll be coming out at some point. I know there was a relationship. They were in the house voluntarily, and one was an older female. I say older, but one was a juvenile 17-year-old, and the other one was a little older. So we'll get the relationship at some point, but not right now.
Is it possible either two of them could still be arrested in relation to this incident?
I won't rule out any possibility right now. They have not been charged with anything. They are cooperating with the investigation, but at this point, we're not charging them with any crime at this point.
Chief, did any of the officers?
Evan Labor, News Nation here. Quick question for you. You mentioned earlier about the gun that the suspect was using. You said that it was automatic. Did you mean fully automatic or semi-automatic? And then secondly, can you give us some context to how the task force approached the home? Did they go in as a tactical unit or with a tactical unit? And is that something that will be reviewed? Were they outgunned? Did they need to go in with more based on this person's criminal history?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a fully automatic weapon that was used, and the officers the task force officers. I'll just say this: they are probably some of the best trained out there. The U.S. Marshals Service in Charlotte has a tremendous training facility, and they have access to train whenever they need to train, and they do train on their approach. So they are tactical in their approach. So I don't know specifically how they approached that residence. I do know that they were going in from the front, and that's about all I can tell you. Is that's when the gunshots rang out and started. So, if you want to, yes.
I'm sorry, before the next question, to also add to that, we provide significant training to all of our task force deputies and task force officers. And in fact, we have refined that training and developed it in 2011 based on another tragic year in which 10 deputy U.S. Marshals and task force officers were killed. So every task force officer, every deputy United States Marshal gets what we call high-risk fugitive apprehension training. But like any agency, will always take a look, and we will review this incident to see what there's lessons learned, what can be done. We are always striving to find ways to reduce deadly encounters and save lives, so we will definitely take a look. Thank you.
Chief, were any of the officers hit by friendly fire?
What kind of resources?
Sir, let's go right.
Yes.
Daniel Pierce from the City News. Got to ask, with this investigation, how many additional homes were hit by gunfire, and how many additional homes did CMP and other law enforcement officers occupy as you were taking fire from this suspect? And how do you determine how to keep those families safe while you're actively engaging in other suspects?
Yeah, safety of the other surrounding areas and residents, particularly if you're dealing, say, with an apartment complex, that's one of the first and foremost things that we want to ensure is that everyone is safe, that all innocent parties are safe. So we do have evacuation plans that we can get people out. I do know that we did occupy a few residents while we were out on the scene. I can't tell you what that looked like right now. It's still very early. Again, it's as far as I know, I have not heard of any other residents that were hit with gunfire during this exchange. I'm not saying that that's the case, but that's not been relayed to me. And to answer your question on the friendly fire, there's no indication right now that there was any no one was succumbed to based on friendly fire.
Chief Jennings,
Yes.
Brett Jensen, WVLT News.
Hey, Brett.
I'm curious, in terms of, you've been chief with other officers that have died and also
Yes.
an officer when others have died. How is this one different from maybe the other ones that you've had to deal with?
Probably the most difficult. All of them are difficult. the last few days have it's just been very tough. And knowing that you have families that are hurting right now. We'll get through it, though.
Mary Ramsey with the Charlotte Observer. Chief, can you shed any more light on the timeline of yesterday's events? How soon after the task force arrived on scene did they begin taking fire? How long did the shooting last? How long did it take for other law enforcement to arrive on the scene?
Well, I can say that, because we did have a sergeant on the scene that was part of the task force, that sergeant was able to immediately get on the radio and call for help. Our division officers quickly responded. As soon as they responded, they were met with gunfire. And they also recognized the need to rescue task force officers who were down by the gunfire. And then as they were trying to do that rescue, we had 4 officers shot as a result.
Chief, you're sitting here with a lot of courage and trying to be strong. What are you doing to help cope with this? Because clearly, in your 30 years, you've never seen anything like this. Not only for you, but your whole staff, the other departments, all the way up to the U.S. Marshals. How are you going to plan? What are you doing in the next few moments to cope with this? Because clearly, this is really taking a toll on everybody.
It is. Let me say too that, just as the mayor talked about the support she's heard from across the country and Canada, and same for me. I appreciate so many text messages and emails that obviously I'm not able to get back to all of them, but phone calls that have come in, that just the support with my peers in other major cities, police chiefs in Canada. I'm just overwhelmed by the support there. What you see behind me, the support, for all of these very important people to come in and stand beside me and our department and our city. And that just means so much, and that's what keeps us going. And that's what it's all about. That's what Charlotte is all about, and that's who we are.
Chief.
I'm sorry, I'm going to speak for the Marshal Service as well. Unfortunately, we've been through some of these critical incidents before, some of these tragedies. So the United States Marshal Service has a critical incident response team that we call CERT. They have been deployed because you're right. It is, while we're worrying about others, while we are trying to take care of the community and the community is trying to take care of us, sometimes we don't take care of ourselves. And so the wellness of all of our staffs is very critical. And so we must now invest. The healing is going to be long. It's going to be tough. But I think if we stay together, we can get through this and heal and come stronger as a profession and as a community. So I would implore any officer, local, state, or federal, that if you need assistance, it's okay not to be okay, and make sure that you ask. And I would think we should just keep repeating that. And repeating that is always the goal of any leader of the agency, never to have this discussion, but to prepare for it. And equally important is to prepare that our people can have a safe, healthy career, and so that they can retire in good shape, both emotionally and physically. So thank you for that question. Sometimes it goes unnoticed, but I appreciate that it did not, and that we are totally committed to making sure we take care of our people.
Chief, Officer Iyer's reputation within the department. Anything more you can tell us today about what he was known for, what kind of officer he was, what kind of community guy he was?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I mentioned Officer Iyer was just a few weeks ago. I'm shaking his hand, congratulating him for being Officer of the Month in our command center. And that's because of his work in the community, because of his work to getting guns off the street, and because of how he responds to his cases and how he treats people. And he's going to be sorely missed in this law enforcement community. And he was one of the ones that the kind of officer you want on your team. And as he demonstrated yesterday, he's the kind of officer you want to respond when you need help. He was rushing in to help a task force officer when he was taken on by gunfire. and then he finds himself from being the rescuer to needing rescue himself. And so I want to say everyone, all of these individual officers that were out there, all 8 that were shot and injured, and all the hundreds that responded, they're heroes. They're heroes because they face dangers that most humans should not have to face. And they accept that danger, and not a single one of them backed away from that challenge yesterday. So I'm very proud of the men and women in blue from every agency that came out to assist yesterday.
Director Davis, in terms of Marshall Weeks, what more can you tell about it? Because he's also from the area. He was part of a golf tournament.
Yes.
He was recently married not too long ago. So what can you tell us about him?
So I had the opportunity to talk to deputies that know him, and I look forward to talking to the family later today. And this morning, the Court family, the Western District of North Carolina, actually shut down operations today, and they came together to honor Deputy Weeks. So the entire Court family, and as was described by one of the judges, I believe Judge Conrad, that no matter what task you gave him, he always had a smile. That everyone talked to him, that he's the person that you could count on, would volunteer, would be there through thick and thin, and was reliable and dependent. So, is this a deputy's deputy? And so he's going to be sorely missed, not only by the district, but by the agency, and obviously for law enforcement. A tremendous loss.
Chief, Jeffrey Collins with the Associated Press. Was there a pause between the suspect being killed and a second wave of gunfire where there might have been an opportunity where somebody might have been trying to ambush the officers as they may have been coming in trying to help out, or if the situation was over?
Yeah, and what you're talking about on that pause is very difficult to kind of sort through right now. As we go through the body-worn camera footage and all that, to see when the suppression of gunfire was taking place. Was it after the individual was down? It's very difficult to tell because on the body-worn camera footage that I've seen at this point, we are trying to locate exactly when that individual was down and where he was when he was down. It could have possibly been firing additional rounds on the ground. We just don't know right now, but we're going to get through all of that and make a determination on whether there's another individual that we need to be concerned with that was shooting during that incident.
What kind of gun did the perpetrator use?
There was an AR-15, and then there was a .40 caliber handgun that was there as well, and also additional magazines for both of them, additional ammunition for both weapons that were there. So.
Chief, Hannah Getz, WSOC.
Yes.
Condolences from the Channel 9.
Thank you.
The AR-15. Can you talk about the threat that poses to officers in a situation like that? Were they wearing body armor, and can that stand up to that type of gunfire in that situation?
No, the traditional body armor for police officers does not withstand a rifle round. So the AR-15 is able to suppress rapid gunfire and holds the magazines obviously holds a great deal of ammunition, and this individual is able to unload several rounds towards our officers within a matter of seconds. And being on high ground also gives the advantage. Even though officers were trying to take cover, they were at a disadvantage because the suspect was up at a higher level, and they were trying to return fire at an elevated from a lower position to an elevated position.
Chief, that sounds absolutely terrifying for any officer. I'm wondering if you could give us more details about how they approach and how much time passed from them arriving on scene to the gunfire erupting.
I don't have a timeline to give you right now. We'll be putting together a timeline on exactly pinpointing when they arrived, when the first shots were relayed over the radio that they needed assistance. But a lot of that information I just don't have for you right now to tell you how they approached it and how quickly. I do know that they were immediately met with gunfire, and there's indication that the suspects saw them coming to the house prior to them getting to the front door.
And I'd just like to ask about those firearms. I mean, this is something everyone up here has talked about previously, but any idea of how he procured those, where they came from? Obviously, if he's a felon, he was
Yes.
them illegally. And I'd like to open up the question larger to everyone who's
Yeah, I'd be willing to turn it over, but I will say that we are looking at the how he acquired the gun. We will be, or all of the guns. We are making progress on that, and we'll be able to determine that based on the purchase of the firearms and who purchased them and how he acquired them from that individual. So we do have some very good resources out there that we are moving quickly to try to figure out where that gun was purchased and who purchased it.
Chief, for you and for Director Davis as well, Ashley Mahoney with Axios Charlotte, what is the best way for the community to support your service members right now? I know there's, of course, these foundation and there's ways people can
Yeah.
what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, I will tell you, our CMPD Police Foundation has been tremendous and have already, they were some of the first people to reach out and offer the support. I do know they set up a fund for all 4 officers and their families that's through their website that they're going to actually set that money aside specifically for the 4 fallen officers. And there are going to be other ways, I'm sure, to support, but, prayers are always something that we need as well to help us heal and get through it. But there's going to be plenty of opportunities for supporting of all the families, and CMPD Police Foundation has already started one.
I'm going to introduce the marshal for the Western District of North Carolina and ask him to come up and answer that question. But I do want to go back to the previous question, and it's mentioned when I talked to the Attorney General. I've also received contact from all of our federal law enforcement counterparts, and one would be the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Farm, the ATF Director, Steve Dettelbeck. And so, as always, we work very closely or at the request or the assistance of any agency with dealing with firearms and tracking the purchase. So we look forward to that assistance. But may I turn over to the Marshal for the Western District?
Terry Bergen, U.S. Marshal, Western District. Deputy Weeks was one of my team members. I worked with Deputy Weeks over the past 20 years in various assignments. I also knew the other 3 officers. And I'd like to leave you with this thought. If you could speak to each one of those fallen officers today and ask them the question, why? They'd say, why what? They say, why did you take the oath? Why did you become law enforcement officers? Their response, why not? The second question, would you do this again, knowing your fate yesterday? Would you do it again? They would be a boisterous yes. They would not change a thing. The only thing they might change is saying, let me lead. Let me lead. They'd get a tussle over who was going in first. That's how brave they were yesterday, and that's how brave they were the day they took the oath of office. Thank you.
Chief Jennings, given this suspect's criminal history, was he someone that was known to officers and familiarity with CMP?
Not that I'm aware of. Each division has individuals that they obviously encounter quite a bit and they know of. I do know he had an extensive criminal history. I don't know the familiarity that they had with the division or how long he had actually lived at that residence or how he came about being there. So I don't have that answer for you.
Chief, 5 years today since the shooting at UNC Charlotte. How do these major incidents impact local law enforcement, whether it's CMPD or one of our neighboring departments?
Yeah. I truly believe incidents like this makes us stronger. I think it also makes more people that see this and say, I want to be a part of that. They see what we do for the community. They see that we are here to save lives. They see that we're here to ensure that each of you are safe in this community. And I can't think of a more honorable or noble profession, other than our military services. But, again, if people feel like they want to be a part of something special, and law enforcement, I will always believe, is a part of something special. And you don't get the satisfaction in any other profession like you do in law enforcement.
Governor Cooper, in terms of in the 7.5 years you've had to go to a lot of these across the state with fallen officers, do Do you have a general message that you want to say to the state about the officers and just these duties that you've always had to do in the last 7 years?
Well, we need to recognize the dangers that they face, and we need more resources for better pay and better benefits and better training for our law enforcement officers so that more of them would be willing to come into the profession. And as I said yesterday when I was at the hospital, I ask people, when you see a law enforcement officer, to thank them for their work.
Will there be any kind of public memorial plan for the fallen officers, and any details yet on when individual funeral arrangements might be announced?
There will be. We're working on that now. That'll all be announced. We are working with the families and see exactly how we want to proceed with memorial services. And as you know, next month, early next month is Police Week, and we are rushing to ensure that these officers are recognized during our memorial services for Police Week coming up in May.
Chief, can you please confirm the names one more time so we have them spelled correctly?
You have them. So it's North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections, Samuel Peloche. Its last name is spelled P-O-L-O-C-H-E. North Carolina Department of Adult and Correction, William Alden, A-L-D-E-N, Elliott. Officer Joshua Iyer, last name is spelled E-Y-E-R. And Deputy United States Marshal Thomas Weeks, W-E-E-K-S. Wounded Officer Christopher Tolley, T-O-L-L-E-Y. Officer Michael Giglio, G-I-G-L-I-O. Officer Jack Blowers. And then Officer Justin Campbell, who is the one who broke his foot.
Chief, are all expected to make a full recovery?
All of those officers are expected to make a full recovery. We actually expect them to be released either, if they haven't already been released, hopefully today or tomorrow. So.
Chief, WVLT Charlotte. Now, obviously, this is a lot of resources and so forth with your officers. Is this going to impact us as we're looking at a big event coming at the end of the week, a 3-day music festival? Is this going to impact resources, officers being able to come to events or way and safety?
No, when we look at the events coming up, particularly this coming weekend, we do have adequate staffing. We are, again, we've placed several officers on administrative leave at this point. However, we are fortunate enough to be a large agency that we can make sure that we have a contingency ready to take on any event that we have here in Charlotte.
Chief, there's no confirmation yet, or I guess guarantee that the 2 females were also involved in the shooting. You're still investigating that part, right? Just to clarify.
We're going to keep all of that open as related to anybody, any opportunity, any ideas or thoughts of another shooter or not another shooter. The evidence is going to play out on that, and we just have to sort through that. Again, there's so much to go through at the house that we're going to be there for quite a while. But as soon as we're able to figure out if there was another shooter or not, we will certainly relay that.
Chief Jennings, for Computer Spectrum News One.
Yes.
First of all, I've interviewed with you a lot, and I'm
Yes.
so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
In the entire department. Second of all, there's a lot of information that's going back and forth, and we just want to clarify. The armored vehicle that was there, did it crash into one of the homes during this, or is that something that is totally unrelated?
Not that I'm aware. I haven't seen that. I watched several footage of video footage yesterday. If it did, I'm not aware of it. I know it did go over a fence to go and rescue officers, but I'm not sure if it crashed into anything or not.
Chief, we saw, hitting at WSOC, we saw a man on crutches entering headquarters this morning. Is that one of the injured officers already going back to headquarters this morning?
Can I tell them? Director Schumeyer, that's our State Bureau of Investigations Director, Bob Schumeyer, former CMPD Deputy Chief. an interim chief. He wasn't shot. He just was playing basketball or something. I'm not sure. He's recovering from surgery, though. He's well. He's well.
Chief, I wanted to piggyback off the question about the armored vehicle, and you may or may not be able to answer that. Was that vehicle, is that part of the plan when you're going in for, especially someone that has firearms? Was that vehicle already on site, or was that a SWAT that was called in later?
Yeah, that was a SWAT contingency. That armored vehicle is a rescue vehicle, and it was absolutely perfect for the situation when you have officers down taking on gunfire. You take that armored vehicle to protect the rescue individuals if that would have been on scene from the get-go, but you normally don't deploy that for a arrest warrant. So that's a SWAT deployment, and when SWAT was deployed, that was a resource that they used.
Couple more questions. I'll get a bit more details. How often and under what circumstances do local police usually work with marshals? I need to talk a little bit just to get a bit more clarity on that.
Oh, we work with all of our federal partners and state partners all the time. Even when we're not a part of the Marshals Task Force, if they need assistance in serving a warrant, we'll go by and stand in perimeter. We'll stand by them to secure their safety. So the relationship has always been strong. It's never been to where it's simply we leave them or they leave us without resources. But when the call is made on either side, it's answered on either side. So we have, again, like I said, we have assigned a sergeant to that task force earlier this year, and that sergeant was basically looking to increase the staffing to assist with the Marshal Service as we continue to show good signs of filling our vacancies and staffing for the department. So, you know, it's not unusual for any task force. We're members of several task forces on the federal side within the Charlotte area, so it's not unusual for assistance within the police department. So,
Confirming that Officer Blowers has been discharged?
Officer Blowers, I believe, yes, he has been discharged.
We're putting out a press release.
Yeah.
Shortly.
All right, one more.
Yes.
Yes.
Will there be a photograph of Deputy Weeks and also confirming, did he go by Thomas Michael? Is that his preferred name?
The press release, I was advised, if it's not out, will be out should be pushed out right now, including photos.
And then his name is Thomas Michael, or he went by Weeks?
Well, he's known as Tommy, but I'll let the marshal ask.
I know him well, but I know his name is Tommy Weeks. And we call it TW. That's what he responded to. We'll get that out to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for helping us memorialize and honor all of these officers involved. Thanks.